Common knowledge tells me it's wise to wear a helmet when you ride a motorcycle. It's quieter, safer, and more comfortable to do so. But not everyone agrees with me. I personally wear a motorcycle helmet every time I ride my bike, but some of you out there are riding without wearing one. Today we're going to find out if there's any merit to this idea of not wearing a motorcycle helmet. And spoiler alert, there kind of isn't. So in today's video, I'm going to present you a bunch of data we found through our own research here at YamiNoob, and then my own opinions and observations on the subject. You don't have to agree with everything I'm going to be saying, but I think you'll find it's pretty hard to refute. Let's start with the obvious. Health and transportation experts and many motorcycling groups encourage the use of helmets. The CDC reports that helmets prevent death in about 40% of motorcycle crashes and reduce the risk of head injury in 69% of motorcycle crashes. Nice. So wearing a helmet works and is a smart choice when you're riding. So what gives? Why don't people wear helmets? It seems pretty obvious. Well, there's a lot of myths and misconceptions about helmet usage that we're going to get into in today's video, but let's establish some baseline first. Here in America, there is no federal law for compulsory helmet usage. It's actually up to the states to determine whether or not there is a universal helmet law there. And actually, we'll roll here on camera the different states that actually require you to wear a helmet. Weirdly enough, there's actually 30 states that require you to wear eye protection, so it seems like those states care more about your eyeballs than your brain, which is a little bit weird. But let's get into these myths and misconceptions about helmet usage. This study actually came to us from the National Library of Health in Iran. They conducted a study of about 377 people that came into a local hospital there who actually had motorcycle injuries and were not wearing helmets, and surveyed them on the reasons why they were not wearing helmets, because we all kind of want to know. So here's some of those reasons. 77% of them said that it was the heavy weight of the helmet, which is a little silly when you consider that an average modern day helmet usually weighs about 3.5 pounds or so. Usually not that heavy to wear one of these helmets. 71% of those folks who crashed said that it was because of the feeling of heat from wearing the helmet. And again, modern day helmets have a lot of ventilation and features to keep you nice and cool. And honestly, you could wear a 3/4 helmet if it really was so bad. 67% said it was a feeling of suffocation. So again, kind of keeping the theme of discomfort, right? And again, maybe those older helmets from the 60s and 70s were a little uncomfortable or suffocating, but modern day helmets have a lot of ventilation, especially in the chin area, to allow lots of airflow. And again, if it's so bad, you can't always wear a 3/4 helmet, which we don't really recommend here on the channel. 59% of those surveyed said it was a limitation in their head or neck, and if you have a helmet that's properly fitted, you're not going to really be needing to move or crane your head around a bunch while you're riding. If you're riding a motorcycle, typically your head is in a static position and you might move it to look at your mirrors or check a blind spot here and there, but you don't need full articulation and motion of your head and neck to wear a motorcycle helmet. Now, obviously, guys, this result is from Iran, and so I'm assuming that a lot of these riders are scooter riders or 125cc riders in dense urban environments who probably don't feel the need to wear a helmet because they're just kind of bopping around from place to place, even though they should be wearing helmets. But let's talk about American riders specifically, because we're always the ones talking about our freedoms to ride. And I'm honestly excluding European riders because a lot of you guys have compulsory helmet laws anyways, and all of you usually wear helmets from what I've seen. Groups like the Motorcycle Rider Federation, the MRF, and other groups like the American Motorcyclist Association, or the AMA, that lots of you are familiar with, had been advocating against motorcycle mandates for decades now. And I'll be honest, I have strong opinions on whether or not I think the AMA should be spending their time advocating against helmet usage when they could be spending their time doing so much more for motorcyclists. Their legislative platforms say that helmets should be voluntary for adult riders. They say that lawmakers should focus on making our roads safer and not for mandating safety equipment, which I find kind of funny. It's a bit like when you're taught sex ed in middle school, and they say that the safest way to practice sex is by performing abstinence, which is a bit of a trick answer to a trick question. Statistically speaking, if so many people are doing something, you're going to have crashes or accidents. And why not just make it safer for people who are going to be involved in those incidents? So I have a quote from one of the articles we used for the research for this video. This guy said, "I think sometimes bikers are very outspoken and lobby to get rid of the law of wearing helmets. It was a push to try to raise personal liberty issues that legislators accepted." And honestly, guys, when you politicize safety, everyone loses. The argument that you're not hurting anyone by not wearing a helmet is actually pretty short-sighted. So let's get into a couple myths about helmet usage that I think you guys are really going to enjoy hearing. One of the myths around helmet usage is that you won't have peripheral vision, which is a bit silly because your average human has between 200 to 220 degrees of peripheral vision, and helmet laws are actually mandated to have at least 210 degrees of peripheral vision. So you'll definitely be able to see your sides when you wear a helmet. The next myth we hear a lot is that people can't hear whenever they wear a motorcycle helmet, which I find pretty silly because when you actually ride without a helmet on, you notice how much wind noise there is. So a helmet actually helps dampen wind noise, and it makes it much more easy to ride your motorcycle and less fatiguing on your mind. I actually wear earplugs when I ride along with my helmet, and I can still hear everything perfectly fine on the road. So if you wear a helmet, you're definitely still going to be able to hear cars around you, traffic, horns, anything else you need to when you're out on the road. Our next myth is that wearing the helmet will somehow injure your neck or your spine more than not wearing a helmet. And guys, this one is just crazy to me. If you get into a motorcycle accident, I think you're going to be wanting to make sure that your head is protected, and there's no way that not wearing a helmet is going to make your neck or spine better off than wearing a helmet. There's no data to suggest that not wearing a helmet is safer for your neck or your spine. In fact, wearing a helmet is definitely going to keep you more safe for your neck and spine. Trust me. All right, guys, this fourth myth is quite funny to me. It's people thinking that helmet laws violate their constitutional rights. Guys, courts have upheld this time and time again. There really is no argument to be made that wearing a helmet is violating your constitutional rights or that someone enforcing helmet laws is violating your constitutional rights. In fact, if you think about it, many traffic ordinances and laws infringe on your rights because we all have to stay safe on the road. We all have to stop at stop signs. We all have to make sure we're driving safe, respecting pedestrian right-of-ways. This is no different than wearing a seatbelt. Seatbelt laws are compulsory, and so helmet laws are as well too. There's really no argument to be made that someone forcing you to wear a helmet is violating your constitutional rights. That's a bit silly. So the next myth I want to talk about is a huge one because I think this is the most common one. People say, well, I'm only hurting myself by not wearing a helmet, so who cares? And this is really misguided, unfortunately. When you think about it, if you get into a motorcycle accident, the first thing that's going to happen is an ambulance is going to come, you're going to be taken off to a hospital, you're going to be activating your health insurance. All these costs and resources are being allocated to you as a person because you chose to not wear a helmet. All these extra costs are now being poured onto you because you have chosen to do something relatively unsafe. On top of that, you're going to lose your working capital as a human being. You're going to be out of work. You're going to be, unfortunately not able to provide for your family. Even worse so, if you end up in a life-altering or a vegetative state because you chose to not wear a helmet, your family now has to take care of you for the rest of their lives, and that's a huge burden onto them. Worse than that, if you were to lose your life from a preventable motorcycle accident where you weren't wearing a helmet, you now don't have the opportunity to provide for your family for as long as you live either. So guys, you're not just hurting yourself when you don't wear a helmet. It's a huge problem for all of society if you think about the net externalities, it's an economics term for you, for this situation. So myth number 6 follows up on myth number 5. People will say, well, yeah, motorcycle accidents represent a minuscule burden on society. We're not that many out there. There's few of us far in between all these cars, so why worry about what we're doing? But statistically speaking, motorcycles die on average 16 times more per vehicle mile driven than car drivers. So although you think you represent a minuscule burden, per vehicle mile, you are much more burdenful than the average car. So that's something to keep in mind as well. In conclusion, guys, there is basically no reason to not wear a motorcycle helmet when you're out on the road. Helmets have gone through a dramatic improvement in the 60s and 70s. They're lighter weight, they're more comfortable. You can find any kind of style that's gonna fit your needs. If you really feel like they're hot or they're suffocating, then go for a 3/4 helmet, although we really recommend wearing a full-face helmet no matter what kind of bike you ride when you're out there on the street. If you don't wear a helmet, let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you. I don't really understand it personally because I wear a helmet every single time that I ride, but let me know in the comments down below. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and let me know if you've changed your mind on maybe not wearing a helmet, although I'm not sure if those people are on YouTube or that we are reaching them. Thanks so much for watching today's video. If you want to keep the conversation going, join over at yammynoob.co, become a member, and get access to our amazing and exclusive Discord server and access to win our giveaway motorcycles. This one is actually one of those bikes. That H2 is not one of them, unfortunately. We'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later. Well, look at you. You've made it to the end of another Yammy Noob video. You should consider yourself pretty lucky because I have curated this one right over here for you to continue watching. It's probably just as good as the one you just saw. Unless you hated the one you just saw. I don't know, maybe leave me a comment down below about how much you hated it as well too. Or just keep watching this one. Make sure you keep watching Yammy Noob. Don't forget to keep watching Yammy Noob. That's the most important thing. Keep watching Yammy Noob.